Despite her early reluctance to join the group, Maura left that first session already looking forward to the next Sunday night. She knew that Nina purposefully swallowed any discussion of the strings in her presence, trying to maintain some chimera of normalcy in their lives, and for that Maura was usually grateful. But it was actually quite freeing to enter a space where no subject was verboten, where the kids' gloves came off. "I'm so depressed." Chelsea opened a session, one night late in April. "About your string?" Maura asked. "No," Chelsea sighed. "Well, yes. But tonight, I'm also depressed because Grey's Anatomy just got cancelled." "Hasn't that been on forever?" Terrell asked. "That's why it's so crazy. It ended out of nowhere. TMZ thinks somebody high up at the show must have gotten a short string and quit." "Well, you're welcome to shadow me at the hospital," Hank smiled. "Though I can't promise any torrid affairs." "Did you hear the Spice Girls might get back together?" Leah asked. "Rumor is that one of them's a short stringer now, and wanted to reunite before. You know." As curious as she was, Maura couldn't help but feel sorry for the people they were discussing. Sure, they had chosen a public life, but wasn't this somehow different? Off limits? Speculation and gossip were running rampant by then, and not just about actors and singers. In the checkout lines at stores, during previews at the movies, at the next table over in any restaurant, it was common to hear people guessing at the length of someone's string. Quitting a job, getting engaged, being unusually cagey at a party. Anything could be construed to support either side, long or short. "They claim they haven't looked, but I know that isn't true," was a widely popular refrain. It made Maura wonder what people said about her, the ones who didn't know. What's worse, Maura realized, it was all their fault. They had brought this upon themselves. Even before the boxes appeared, the traditional barriers of privacy had long been collapsing. Hers already a society of oversharers. Maura, like so many others, had posted photo after photo online, of decadent meals, of the view from her office, of weekends at the beach with Nina. Each one encouraging people to pry deeper and deeper into others' lives, to expect a certain degree of transparency, until, finally, even the act of looking at your string, what should have been the most intimate, the most personal of moments, became just another insight into your life that no longer belonged to you alone. Had the strings arrived in any other century, Maura reasoned, nobody would have dared ask what was inside your box, leaving each household to quietly mourn or celebrate on their own, behind closed doors and drawn curtains. But not now, not in this modern era when feuds and flirtations played out online, when family milestones, professional achievements, and personal tragedies were all on display. Celebrities dodged interview questions about their strings. Athletes were probed about their career prospects. Song lyrics were ruthlessly examined for hints of a string-related message. Happy hour proved unexpectedly dangerous, with friends and co-workers fishing for drunken confessions. Members of the royal family, child stars, the sons and daughters of politicians, anyone with the misfortune of turning 22 in the spotlight, awoke that fateful morning under the nosy gaze of paparazzi lenses, aiming to capture the $1,000,000 reaction. The public demanded to know. "I have an idea for something different tonight," said Sean, snapping Maura's attention back to the present. "And I want everyone to keep an open mind as I explain it." Maura glanced at Ben seated next to her. "Gird your loins," she whispered. "Already girded," he smiled. "Some of my colleagues from other groups have talked about the fact that not everyone feels comfortable sharing things out loud, which is perfectly natural," said Sean. "And while I hope that this is a safe space where nobody feels intimidated to speak up, I think it could be helpful to try a different method of processing our thoughts." Sean pulled 2 yellow legal pads out of his satchel, followed by a dozen blue pens. "I want everyone to take a pen and a few pieces of paper and write a letter." "Is there something specific we're writing to?" asked Nihal, ever the good student. "Nope." Sean shook his head. "You can address the letter to your current self, your younger self, your future self, or to someone else whom you'd like to say something to. Or you could just put pen to paper for 10 minutes and see what comes out." "Sounds like a waste of time," Carl mumbled. The notepads made their way around the circle, and Maura stared at the blank page in her lap. Nina would love this exercise, Maura thought. She was so much better with words. "Dear Nina," she wrote. The next line was proving more difficult. In a world of rumors and meddlesome strangers, Nina was the only person who actually deserved to know everything about Mara's life. And there were few things that Maura hadn't shared with her during the past 2 years. And through each late-night confession, they had stayed together. Nina wasn't bothered by Maura's restless nature. The fact that in 7 years she had held 5 different jobs, from a downtown gallery to a mayoral campaign to a brief stint at a startup that abruptly imploded. And she had gone through just as many girlfriends as careers. When Maura had jumped from career to career, from fling to fling, Nina was never burdened by that sense of restiveness. She had worked her way up at the same magazine since college, and she had 2 rather undramatic relationships before Maura, with 0 one-night stands in the middle, all of which Nina would speak about almost shamefully, as if it made her seem boring, unadventurous. But Maura actually admired it. Nina was loyal in a way that seemed rare nowadays. After they'd opened their boxes, Maura had given Nina the chance to leave, but she refused. "I know that you love me," Maura said, "but I don't even have 10 years left, and you deserve someone you can spend the rest of your life with." Nina was shocked. "I do love you, and that's why I would never leave." Maura suggested that Nina take some time to think. "You wouldn't have to feel guilty about it." She held Nina's hand tenderly. "I wouldn't blame you." But Nina had insisted. "I don't need time to know how I feel." Still searching for inspiration for her letter, Maura looked around room 204. It was clearly an English classroom, decorated with black and white portraits of famous authors. They reminded Maura of the posters in her old studio apartment, where the bed took up nearly half the space, and her collection of vintage celebrity mugshots graced the low white walls. On their 4th date, the first time that Nina came over, Maura had watched as she studied the photos intently. A stoic David Bowie in Rochester Precinct, Frank Sinatra in the 30s, his tousled hair falling over his forehead with a boyish sexiness. Jane Fonda raising a clenched fist in Cleveland. Bill Gates looking like a blonde beetle, actually grinning in his portrait from the 70s. And Jimi Hendrix, unfazed in 1969, with his shirt unbuttoned to reveal a pendant necklace. Most of those were just drug-related, pretty minor offenses, Maura explained. Bill Gates was arrested for driving without a license. "I think they're fascinating," Nina said. "I almost want to put them in a 4-page spread in our next issue." "So you're on a date with me, and yet you're thinking about work?" Maura sat down on the bed and crossed her legs flirtatiously. "How's that supposed to make me feel?" "I'm so sorry," Nina smiled, leaning down to kiss Maura lightly. I'm actually quite embarrassed to admit I don't know a lot of those people ever got arrested. That's sort of why I hung them up, Maura said, looking across the display. They're a reminder that sometimes we screw up, and sometimes the system screws with us. But if you live your life with enough passion and boldness, then that's what you'll be remembered for, not the crap that happened along the way. 10 minutes had nearly passed, but Mara's letter was still blank. She looked around the room and saw that most of the other group members hadn't stopped writing since receiving their pens. Ben had already finished his letter and was doodling a sketch of the New York City skyline. At least Hank seemed to be struggling, too. Dear Nina. What could she write that Nina didn't already know? There was only one answer, but Maura couldn't tell her now. Not after all the discussions and decisions. Not when Nina thought that the matter was settled. And it was settled. Maura had convinced herself of that. What good would it do Nina to learn that Maura was having doubts?